Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Catholic ReCon Testimonies from Reverts and Converts. I'm your host, Eddie Trask. This week's guest is Deacon Mark Fry, all the way from, tell me, Mark, where?
Orlando, Florida.
Orlando. I was going to say Miami for some reason. It's great to see you. It was great chatting with you a few weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to hearing your whole testimony today.
Oh, it was good to talk to you. Thanks to my wife who found your YouTube channel.
That's
And
right. That's
yeah,
right. I appreciate when spouses reach out on behalf of their spouse. So that's really cool. So Deacon Mark, as we do every week, why don't you take us to the beginning of your faith journey? How did it
okay.
all begin?
Well, I'm the oldest of three in my family. I have two younger sisters. Uh, it really began it lived in the Midwest. So born in Iowa, then moved very young to central Missouri. And that's where I really remember the church, getting into the church and being in the church, you know, 'cause, and my parents just always seemed to be doing stuff in church. What I just remember, they were always doing things, and we would get to tag along or help out, depending on what it was. And so that's just what I thought you do. As a Catholic or in churches, that you're just always kind of doing stuff. So that was kind of how I I saw the faith. I don't remember, faith formation or any of those classes. I just remember being there doing things. So that was my younger years. I loved altar serving, so that was one of the things I really liked doing. And I do remember going to a retreat that I want to say he was the associate pastor, had identified some of us guys that maybe were interested in the priesthood. And I remember going to a retreat at I guess it would be like a seminary prep high school, up in Hannibal, Missouri, which was like 4 or 5 hours away from home. So it was not something. Just the distance was enough to bother me. But then I realized that there were no girls, and, and they didn't play football. And what I really liked was football at that time. And I could have got past the girl thing, but it didn't work. That didn't all work for me. So I didn't think that was my call. And and then not too long after that, the next year in my ninth grade, we moved to south to Oklahoma City. And that was kind of where things kind of changed for me, because I lost all my friends. We didn't have any family or anybody there. And I started in the new parish where we were at, and that was around the time that they started confirmation classes. So I met a few friends that were on the football team, and I also went to the church there. But I started questioning things, as I don't think I'm any different than most teenagers, you know, but I did. I started questioning things. I don't remember, much of the confirmation classes. All I remember doing in confirmation class was playing pool. They had like a pool table in the young adult room, and we did that. I don't remember anything else. And so I always tell this to the kids that are in the confirmation class. I share with them my confirmation. I don't remember anything about my confirmation. I have a picture of it. I can see the bishop putting the oil on my forehead in the picture. And then there's a picture of me holding a Bible that my parents gave me, which I still have back over here somewhere. And um, and then what I really remember from confirmation is that so I would have been 15, and I think a couple of my friends were 16, and so they were driving. One guy had a Jeep. Uh, so four of us, we got together all the money that we had, and we went to Super Walmart and we bought all the toilet paper we could. And we had a list of the people that were in the confirmation class. And we bought a map, because this is like 1987. You got to have a map. And we found all the houses we could from that list, and we toilet papered them that night. That was my confirmation night. Yeah. Um, and so uh, I always joke that the oil didn't really seep in for a long time. So that's the joke I put with it. So um, that and so that was kind of where that was kind of where I was going. I wasn't really grasping my faith or what it meant to do that.
I am interested. Did you have any type of prayer life? Do you remember anything in your teenage years?
No, yeah, um, I talk about this too, where it's like the only prayer I remember is like it when we had family meals, and we had family meals, maybe 3 or 4 nights a week. It was just a prayer before meals. Bless us, O Lord, and these thy
Yeah.
gifts. That was the only prayer that we did in our house. I can't remember praying the rosary, none of that. And I don't hold that against my parents. I think my parents they were the you'll see our faith through action type of parents. So that's they were very like I said, they were very active. Even when we switched when we moved, they were immediately very active in the church. And when I still helped out, but there was just something was changing in me, and I was just questioning everything. So as time went on and all that, I just continued to question more and more, and I didn't really want to go to church anymore. And since I was the oldest, my parents, when I became 18, they gave. I was the first one to try this with, so they said, "Well, you're 18 now. You can make more of your own personal decisions." And so the first personal decision I made was to stop going to church. So that's what I did. I would tell them I was going, like to a different mass. I didn't want to wake up and go to 10 a.m. mass or whatever it was they were going to. And so but I didn't go. I would just go out with my friends and do whatever. The next decision I made after high school was to not go to college and just kind of live the life of the school of hard knocks, trying to just do what I got to do to I guess what they call adulting now. So I was just adulting in a way that
Just working odd jobs
yeah.
yeah.
I had started working at a fast food restaurant when I was 16, and so I was still working there. So I just started working more and then just hanging out with my friends, and we would get in some trouble. Nothing major. Just silly things or nothing of any magnitude. But they like to drink. I didn't like to drink, but I was kind of their designated driver. So my big concern was making sure everybody got home safe. And as long as we got home safe, I called this a successful night, no matter what else happened. So that was one of the things that I was concerned about. But I also used that as I was thinking about this over the last couple of weeks. I never really thought about this, but I kind of use that as a way to say, I'm still a pretty good guy. I'm like, even though I'm not going to church, if you ask me anytime, if anybody came up to me and said, what faith are you? I would say Catholic. I was, but, and then if they say, are you going to church? Oh, no, I'm going to church, but I'm Catholic. Um, so, but I use that. And this is really something I just thought about over the last couple of weeks. I would use that to think, I don't need to go to church. I'm still a really good guy. I'm not doing anything crazy or doing anything wrong. Or, I would, if any of my friends from back then see us, I was probably judging myself against them. So, well, so I'm not getting drunk every night, or whatever. And, um, but, that was just how I was justifying my walk at that time. And that went on for years, went on for a long time. So leaving around 16, I really didn't go back to the church for almost 16 years. So within that time frame, I'm just doing a bunch of different things, and none of it's good, none of it's great, and none of it is really helping my faith life at all. And so around the time I'm like 24, 25, the first thing that happens in our family that's like a big shakeup is my oldest sister, the middle child. She says that she's pregnant from this guy that she met actually at the fast food restaurant that I worked at. She had started working there, and I had moved on. I had moved on after she started working there, maybe a year or two, and I moved on to what became a career for me of over 30 years working car insurance claims. Um, and the guy that took my place is the guy that she started hanging out with and hooking up with or whatever. And she lets our family know she's pregnant and she's moving out of my parents' house, and and they're moving in together, and all that stuff goes on. She has her first child, my nephew. And then they talk about getting married, and sooner or later they do get married, and then they have another child, my niece, and they start not too long after that, even probably before that, they were already in a rocky situation. And then around the same time, after my niece is born, my parents start to have issues, and it gets my it gets a little ugly because of my dad's choices, and I felt like I had to choose sides. Even though I don't know that my mom really ever voiced something like that or even wanted that. I chose sides, and I chose her side. Um, just because of how things had gone, and that led to about 5 years where I barely ever talked to my dad, just because I was just that angry at him, and it was how I handled it, and it wasn't good. Um, so all that's going on within this time frame, and I'm not going to church unless I just happen to be visiting my mom at her house, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to church. You want to come with me?" But really, I became a CEO, Christmas and Easter only. If I was lucky, I went to Christmas and Easter for a long time. So my the oldest child daughter, my sister, she was trying to hold things together in a lot of ways. Not only her marriage, the family. She was kind of the go-between for everybody, and then once it just fell apart with her husband, um, she had her own set of issues. I had moved at that point to Tulsa, so I was about 90 minutes away. And I would get these phone calls from her about, this is going on with your dad, with our dad. He's having health issues, or he's having money issues, and what can you do to help out? And I'm just like, I'm not going to do anything for him. That's just where my mindset was. I'm not going to do anything for him. He's the dad I knew. That's not him, and I don't want anything to do with him. And so my sister, also with these two young kids, and she's juggling all this stuff. And my younger sister is much younger, so she's still at home with my mom in high school. So it's not like she can do a lot. And so this was just, I there was a lot of guilt that built up in me over the years because of what I didn't do and left my sister to do. And her big brother should have been helping her out in a lot of ways, and not only helping her out but protecting her, from the different things that were going on. And so that guilt started to build up in me, but I still wasn't, since I didn't have a faith life. It was just guilt. So I would mask it in other ways. I didn't ever drink or do drugs, but I did fall into the addiction of pornography. So I used that as a retreat for myself, away from the world, and that wasn't good. And that went on for a long time as well. Um, so all that's going on within this turmoil, and this job that I've had that I really like. The company I work for decided that they didn't want to have any more offices in the state of Oklahoma. So you can choose to take a severance, or you can choose to see if there's a spot you'd like to apply for somewhere else. Since I was single, I didn't really have a family thing to worry about in a sense. I decided to try to keep my career, and I applied to the office that's here in Orlando, and I got accepted, and I moved here in July of 2003. So I've been here. Really, it was 22 years now. So July 2003, I moved here. Nobody, I don't know anybody here. This is still like before you can have like FaceTime anybody for videos or anything. So like not even knowing the people that I'm coming to work with. I asked one of the guys to help me find an apartment. There's an apartment near the office. Could you go over there and just kind of check it out for me? This guy I don't even know gives me the thumbs up, and I sign a lease to an apartment I don't even see except off some couple of stock photos on an internet page, and surprisingly that worked out. But I was only here a few months, so so October of that year, October 7th, I'd only been here for a few months, and I go into the office and I'm there for just a very short amount of time. It was probably like 9 o'clock by the time I get a call from my mother, and she's I can't understand what she's saying at first, and then I do understand that she's saying that my sister, that my oldest sister, has been murdered by her. We She thought at that moment her ex-husband. We didn't have any information at that point. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind, where there was a lot of things that came from up, and there was no one knew where he was. He had called into a TV station and made some strange comments, which kind of helped them find where she was, but no one knew where he was. So my mom was in hiding. My sister was in hiding somewhere else. I was flying in. The couple of my high school friends, one that I was the best man at his wedding, he met me. He got from Chicago to Oklahoma before I got from Orlando to Oklahoma, and met me in the airport. And he and a friend helped me hide for just a little bit, just because we didn't know where he was. And within 24 hours, though, we did find out that the police found him, and he had a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So within 24 hours, my niece and nephew, my nephew was 7, my niece was 5. They lost both their parents. And I lost my sister. My mom lost her oldest daughter. And my dad was at the time bedridden in a nursing home, and my sister was the one that was taking care of him in a lot of ways. So there was a lot that was going on in that moment. And what I just jumped by as I'm thinking about this is that I just moved to Orlando, and I'm like, I'm lonely, and things are, I'm okay with job wise, but I'm just lonely, and things just aren't going well. And I'm like, the first thing I got to do is my sister's been bugging me to fix this relationship with my dad. Let's do this. When I go back at Christmas, I'm going to ask her to take me over to the nursing home, and let's talk. Well, 2 months before that, this happened. So at first I was like, she's not going to be able to see this. And then I thought, as time goes on, I'm like, she saw me go there. It just wasn't the way I had hoped. So when I talk and I'm nervous, my mouth gets super dry. So, so all this goes on. I do go visit my dad, and we start to mend that relationship. My dad was in way worse shape than she even told me, or even so he didn't last much longer. He lasted a couple more years, but during this couple weeks that I was there, there's the funeral mass, and you talked about, was there any prayer life? I prayed the rosary for the first time at like a vigil. We didn't have a vigil at the funeral home. We had a family get together and friends at my mom's house, led by some good friends of theirs. We prayed the rosary. That was like the first time I ever prayed the rosary. I knew the prayers, but I'd never actually prayed the rosary before in my life. And I would have been, that's why I've been 31, 32 years old at that point. And that was that. I remember that very vividly. And, then that next day we go to the church for the funeral mass, the same church where I was confirmed. And, I'm sitting there and I'm just sitting there, with the family in the front row, and I'm just watching all this stuff go on. I remember the prayers. I'm saying the prayers, doing whatever, but I'm looking at this priest at the ambo. I'm just like, and I'm just so angry. I'm so angry at God, and in some ways I'm angry at him, but he didn't do anything. But he's the symbol of the faith, right? So I'm just angry the whole time, and I'm hearing everybody say they're our Father. They're responding to the prayers during the Eucharist part, and I'm just like, these are all just there's all just words. And I was like, this is just short of a cult. That was the words that were in my head. They're just short of a cult. And I was like, I'm never coming back in here. Never coming back. I'm never darkening the door of a church again, after this. And so I was there for, I went and saw my dad, and we talked for a little bit, and I spent some time with him over that. And that started a process. I would come back and I would meet with him. I came back when he was in the hospital a couple of times, and I shared on Father's Day in the homily. It was like, he didn't have a lot of strength left in the last year or so, but when I came to see him, like I would sit and talk with him. He might say a couple of things. His mind was still sharp. His body was gone from diabetes and different things, and but he would muster all the energy he could at the end to say, "I love you, son. Drive safe." That was he would muster all that energy. So, and on Father's Day, I was like, I wish I could hear that one more time from him. And so that relationship mended. But what had built up in me, the guilt over leaving my sister to deal with him and all these different things, and now she's gone. She doesn't see this mending. There was this huge amount of guilt building in me, and I went back to Orlando with a few kind of work friends, but no real stable, no stable place to land. So I went through. I retreated I retreated into just pornography and just being by myself. My work friends tried so much to get me involved in different things, and I would go, but I was a shell. I was a shell of a person, and I contemplated suicide at least 2 or 3 times. One time driving on the interstate, just thinking, what would happen if I just swerved off at that next light pole, and undone my seatbelt, and what would happen? I'm in car insurance claims. I look at car damage on a daily basis. I know exactly what would happen to me. And there was a voice. It had to be, I think it was my guardian angel, because it wasn't me thinking this, but it had to be my guardian angel, because I didn't say, it wasn't it was you that came out. It was like, you can't let your mother bury another one of her children. It wasn't, I can't let my mother, it was, you can't let your mother bury another one of her children. And so I was just like, that would stop me. I would snap back. Like, okay, I'm fine, whatever. And I would move on. But that happened every time that I contemplated that. So that was, he was looking out for me. So that's all I can say when it comes to that. And so I went through that time, and then, but then within that time frame, when I was kind of going through this, there was this young lady that started in our office as a new employee, and she was different than the others. She was very positive about everything, and she always had this big smile on her face, and she Um, she looked like she was way younger than me, but she just had this great attitude about her. And that's who's now my wife, Gloria. But she just, as I was thinking about this, the way to describe her, she became a ray of sunshine in my life that I didn't know I was missing. So just being able to see her and talk to her and just hang out with her was a lot of fun. And we would do that as a group in the office. It was a small office, so we would go out on Fridays and go to a local place, and some people would drink. Gloria and I didn't drink. We would kind of sit there. We would laugh at these people as they got a little tipsy on a Friday, and then we would talk about different things. We realized we liked a lot of the same things, and we liked movies, and we were both single. We didn't have anybody to go to movies with. So we just, after a time, we just started going to the movies together, and we would get something to eat, and then we would talk more and hang out. And it felt like it was getting more serious, but I was holding back because I didn't know if I was going to stay here. My family was back in Oklahoma. My mom, my sister, my niece and nephew, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back there and be closer to them, or if I wanted to stay out here. So I didn't want to get too attached. And before I go any further, I feel like I should say about my niece and nephew, because I'm sure if somebody's like, what's going on with them? Where are they at? What's up with them? Don't leave us hanging, Deacon. And um, they are now, if I have their ages right, they're either 27 and 25, or they are 20, or they're 28 and 26. My nephew was recently married, and is now expecting his first child, a boy, in December, and he's married to a wonderful woman. Um, and they were, and my niece is dating a fine Catholic boy. We'll see where that goes. But they were adopted by their uncle on their dad's side. So his brother and his wife, uh, his brother is the polar opposite of their dad, and he was in the military. He was he was he gave them a structure that they needed. His wife as well, who had to take the lion's share of this, as he was deployed at times and different things like that. She had to take on um, a lot of trauma that had to do with them, but they didn't bat an eye when they were asked 3 days after if they could take in their niece and nephew, and they had. So they take in a 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. Well, they also had a 6-year-old girl of their own and a 2-year-old girl of their own who had special needs. It wasn't a question to them. So now they had a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and 2-year-old to deal with, and they've been amazing. They and come what I didn't know at first was my sister had already talked to my mom about this before. And the two choices she had was, Mom, if you can't do it, his brother and his wife are the ones that, if something happens to me for whatever reason, those are who I want. Those are the two I want them to go to. If you can please make that happen, So,
Thank
and she
God
didn't
that
have to
worked out.
raise it. It
Thank
did.
God. Wow.
They did. So they are doing awesome. On top of that, and their sister, who's now my adopted niece in a lot of ways. If I don't mention the fact that their two sisters are also amazing. The one that was 6 years old was Miss Oklahoma, during COVID, and the youngest one is like the poster child of, for those that have Down syndrome and are able to do anything they want to do. She is a great ambassador with her sister now, for those that have special needs, but they are highly productive people in society, and give a blessing that's beyond anything that you could imagine. And so the family is in a lot of, they're killing it in a lot of ways.
Great.
My niece and nephew are both teachers now in the Oklahoma City public in the Oklahoma public school system. So they are doing great. And so I wanted to make sure I had that in there before I went too much farther and threw everybody off.
No,
But
I appreciate that. Yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask about the
what
niece and
are they
nephews.
doing?
So, yep,
Oh my gosh.
yep.
Um, I was not in a spot where I could do anything with them. So the fact that I
Yeah,
it was a God gift to
incredible.
us. So so we come up on the year anniversary of my sister's death, and I go back to Oklahoma for to spend time with my family. We don't do any kind of celebration or anything, but we just so I figured I need to be home with my mom and for all of us. And when I'm flying back, I'm like, okay, you really like this girl, but you're not sure if you want to stay there. But don't make a decision unless you check it out a little bit further. Um, so we get back and we would email back and forth about, hey, do you want to go see a movie or whatever? And so like then when she did that, I thought this is my moment. So the most romantic way I could in a work email, I asked her out. Asked her out on a date. I said, let's make this an official date instead of just us going out for a movie. And it took way longer for her to reply than I had hoped, but she said yes, and I was sweating it, and so that started us on a path that I didn't realize because we hadn't really gotten that deep in talking that Gloria was also away from the church for over 20 years herself,
No kidding.
and she was thinking about going back to her faith. So she had been doing some of her own church shopping, some different things. And so we were talking about this stuff, and I was thinking, I need to. I was starting to get these rumblings within me that I need to do something. But I was way slower at this than what she was. So just a couple months after that, Christmas Eve actually, she goes. I'm in Oklahoma. She goes to St. Peter and Paul Church here in Winter Park, Florida, for Christmas Eve midnight mass with her mom, and she doesn't stop going every Sunday after that because of just how it felt, and the people that are there and still there, and I started to see a change in her. I mean, she's already like the greatest girl I knew outside of my mom, but there was this extra change in her. It was like, okay, maybe I should go with her one Sunday and just see what's up. And it takes me about 6 months to pull up the courage to do that. But I go in there with her on. It was probably sometime in May or June, and I still remember the pastor's the line from his homily that just I was just like he had me right there. He hooked me in, and that was all Jesus needed. And I'm sitting there because I'm in this guilt of everything that's happened, and I'm kind of just beating myself up, and whatever he was talking about, I just remember he points to the cross. He's like, if God would not spare his only son the pain and suffering of the cross, why do you think he's gonna spare us pain and suffering in our daily lives, especially off of our own choices? And I was just like, oh, dang it. I was like, and I was just like, yeah, why would I think that? Why would I sit there at my sister's funeral all upset at this for what happened when it was choices? They were all choices that were made. He could have stopped certain things. Yeah, he can, but he loves us too much to just blindly take those choices away from us. Because how do I come back to love somebody whenever there's no choice in that? And so that started a process for me. And like every week, it seemed like the deacon or the priest would say something. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And before I knew it, I was coming every week with her, and just so surprised. And I would watch people there, and that we were blessed with some amazing deacons that were giving me some great examples of what it means to be a servant. And before I knew it, I was thinking, I'm thinking, I think I'm going to marry this girl. Um, and the bulletin has the thing like, well, if you want to get married here, you gotta be registered. And I was like, oh, well, we're not registered. We're donating, but we're not registered. So maybe we should register. And I didn't even tell her why. I just told I think we should register here. Let's just register because I hadn't asked her yet. So I can't tell her register so I can ask you to marry you, type of thing. So she's just like, so okay, well, I guess we'll register here. I like going here. And then it was like 2 months later, I asked her um, to marry me, and we go through all the stuff there, and then I start getting involved. We start getting involved in the church. We get married in 2007, June 9th, 2007, and then we go to a retreat, and then we just start getting involved because that's what I remember my parents doing. You become Eucharistic ministers, or you do these different things. So we just started getting involved in the church, and we were going to the different things they had. And then there was a parish mission, and it was a priest. I want to say he was a Paulist father from New York City, because what I remember him talking about was being in New York, and he got mugged to the point where he almost died. He was like in the hospital, and but he's standing there, so he didn't die, right? So I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I was listening to him tell this story, and he tells how he forgave the guys that mugged him while he was in the hospital. He's like, I don't see these guys. I've never seen them again. But I sat there, and I was like, Lord, I forgive them. And it was like really freeing to him that he did that. And I'm still sitting in this guilt of my sister, of and I'm not forgiving her ex-husband. I'm not forgiving myself because for the longest time I blame myself. If I didn't leave that fast food job, there wouldn't have been an opening for this guy to come and meet my sister. I for the longest time I was the one that caused this to happen, that sat with me for a long time until that very night, because they bring out a big wooden cross to the front of the altar, and he just says, he's like, I don't know who in here needs to forgive somebody, whether they're alive or dead. I don't know if you need to forgive yourself, but you don't have to say it out loud. The Lord, all you need to do is let the Lord hear it, and then you come up here and you give it to the cross, and you let it go. And I forgave myself. I forgave my dad, even though we had made up, and he had already passed. I forgave him and I asked him to forgive me. I forgave my sister's ex-husband, and I probably forgave other people that for whatever, but those three, myself, my dad, and him, I asked my sister for forgiveness for not being a good big brother, you know, and and I touched that cross and I left it, and oh my gosh, the weight, the freeness that came from that. Um, I went to confession and talked about it, and gave that again in that way too, just to double up, I guess, or to just make sure. But but I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't done that first. I would have never talked to the priest about that. I would so I would have kept that, and I was keeping it, so to let that go, man, it was so freeing. I feel lighter just talking about it again. Um, and then it was like a snowball. It was like a snowball effect. Like that was all it took for the Lord to kick the snowball down the hill, and then things started to go fast. Like we got more involved in the church, and then all of a sudden, I get this feeling like maybe I should think about the diaconate. And I was like, no, no, don't do that. And then at the same time, my wife gets some feeling. It's like, have you been thinking about the diaconate? I was like, oh man. And then like two or three other people were like, are you thinking about the diaconate? You should be a deacon. And I was like, oh Lord, are you telling me to look into this? So I look into it. We weren't quite. You have to be married 5 years in our diocese to apply. So it just all worked out that if when I applied when I did, when the next formation would start, we would just have been 5 years married. I was like, oh, the timing. Come on, Lord, you can't even give me a break on that. And so we did that. So I did. I applied, um, and within that time frame too, I kicked that addiction. With the help of just a random comment from a guy who was struggling with alcoholism. A random comment he made that I'm pretty sure I heard him say 2 years before that in the same type meeting we were in, because that was just who he was, but I wasn't ready to hear it. And then I hear it this one day that he's just like, you can't start to beat an addiction until you choose to beat it. You can pray to God all you want. He can't take it away until you want to let it go. And I was like, huh, I've been praying every day about this and nothing's happening. I was like, oh, because I didn't let it go, even though I'd let stuff go on the cross, and I thought, oh man, come on. So I'm slow. I'm slow sometimes. I take baby steps, and I need to be explained a couple more times, but it worked, and I kicked that. So all this snowball's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's leading to this date that's out there in the distance, like 6 years away. Um, and all I knew was I needed to say yes. That's what I felt when I was going through this whole process for the diaconate. I just needed to say yes. I need to put in the effort. I'd never gone to college, and now I'm taking master's level classes. I'd never written a college paper before in my life. I didn't like sitting down and reading for longer than 5 minutes. So the Lord even worked that out. It was a 5 year process here in Orlando, and they had too many guys apply for the class that would have been ordained in 2017. So the bishop said, identify the younger guys that maybe could use another year to get ready, and ask them to just do some stuff we'll give them some things to do and some things to sit back and wait a year. And I was one of those guys. And I took that year. I started teaching myself to read more and do different things and do all these different things until I was ready for the next year. And now, thanks to our class, everybody has to go through 6 years because we did so well with the 6 year process. So everybody in Orlando can blame us for the 6 year process. So, um, but man, so that started, and we're just going through all this, and I just keep saying yes every month. Yes, Lord, if it's not supposed to be for me, I'm going to trust that the guys in charge are going to tell me no. And if they tell me no, then I know you got something else planned for me. And they kept saying yes. I kept saying yes. And before you knew it, 6 years had gone by. My wife has to go through the entire process with me. She's there every month for a weekend. And it was here in Orlando, so it was, but that was, we went through that together. We grew together even closer because of it. And it was just a great blessing. But it was this date out in the distance, and it's always in our diocese, usually the second weekend in June. And as it got closer, they finally nailed down the date, and it was June 9th, 2018. Not only was that my ordination day, but that was my 11th wedding anniversary as well. And so I joked with my wife that she wore the white dress 11 years ago, and today I'll wear the white dress. And so, so that that happened, and I was ordained, um, and it's just been one blessing after another. The year before I was ordained, my mom moved in with us because she was having health issues, and then you know, we had her with us for 4 years, but her dementia and things like that progressed too much. So the last year of her life, we had her in an assisted living facility very close to us. And this is just how things come full circle, Eddie, because she passed because of some health issues. She had fallen and broke her hip, and then she just didn't have the energy to make it through rehab, and she had the hip replacement, but it was just too much for her. And I knew it, I saw it, and I was preparing myself for it, and it happened pretty quick. But she never recovered from my sister's death. It only took someone to ask her how many kids she had, or what's your children's names, or anything, anything that my sister's name was Angela. So if she saw an angel, that would bother her. So, I mean, I looked at it as in a lot of ways, it was a great blessing that she was able to go home when she did. Um, Her pain was done. The physical pain, she was a strong woman. She could have dealt with that, and she might have made it through. But the the emotional pain she had, and that bothered me as a deacon too, in a way that like the one person I can't seem to help, or I can't she can't share with me the way that I wish she could. It's just because it was too personal. Um, she just couldn't, and so that bothered me a little bit. But I knew that was I'm limited, and so but I was happy that in a lot of ways I was happy that she had finally gone home, and um, so we had a funeral mass for her here, but she had already when my sister passed away, she already set it up that my sister was in one spot and she was in the next spot next to her in Oklahoma. So she had taken care of everything. Um, all we had to do was get her back there. So that's what
Yeah.
we did. And I asked the church that she used to go to, the same church that I was confirmed in, the same church that had the funeral mass for my sister, if we could have a funeral mass there for my family who could not come to Orlando, and for her friends. She had a large community of friends there and they just happened that day. Every Wednesday, they do a like a senior day. I forget what they called it, but it was a day for the seniors. They could get away. They cook for them. They do different things. They have mass in the middle of the day. I was like, can we schedule this potentially for what would normally be their mass, and they can come to my mom's funeral mass, and they're like, of course, and they're like, can I serve at that mass? And I didn't think I'd get emotional about this, but they're like, yeah. Um, and then father said he was going to preach. I'm like, that's fine. But then he realized he thought about it again, and then they called me and said, Father would like you to preach if possible. So, okay. And this just dawned on me as I've been thinking about this. The same ambo that I watched that pastor preach from, and I was like, I'm just so angry, Lord. I preached from the same ambo out to my family and friends about the hope and joy of our Lord and his faith.
Oh my
how,
gosh.
how ironic is that?
That is incredible.
And then I got to go to the cemetery and bury my mom, um, and do the committal service the day before our wedding anniversary. So on June 8th of 2022, everything seems to focus around that date, right around there. So it's just been, I am humbled uh, at what the Lord has done in this process. There's a good friend of mine that always talks about. He's like, I'm no longer amazed at what the Lord does. I'm just impressed. When it happens again, I'm like, Lord, you're impressing me again.
Oh,
And as I think about these things, that's where it happens. And so now in my life, now I'm just around Christmas, I decided to leave the career I've had for over 30 years, and I now work at our local Catholic cemetery
oh wow.
and walking with families in their most traumatic moments. That's my main duty is walk with the families that are in the most need. To be the emergency deacon on the staff for services, but to also connect them back to their parish, and get them connected with one of my brother deacons or a priest there, through these services. And then I get my greatest joys now from the things that bothered me the most as a kid, or as a young adult: death, the loss of life, uh, going to the nursing home, to do communion services and visit those in the nursing home where I didn't want to go see my dad, and then talking with guys about about addictions and how to walk with them and help them through that. The three areas of my life that I thought were the broken parts of me are now, you know, what I get to help others with. And the transformations I get to see just at the cemetery of those that are coming to visit. I it's just this the stories are unbelievable to me, and be able to share them with others, and just be able to get a hug from somebody that yesterday was on her knees crying at a site, to come back the next day and to give you a hug and tell you thank you, that I feel so much better today. You, I I didn't do anything. I would, but to take that hug for the Lord, I'll take
Yeah.
it. But
Oh,
that's that's kind of that's kind of that's me, Eddie.
wow.
So
Oh, that story gets me so good. That was you talk about full circle. It's almost like mending every last part that was broken, bringing it all the way around, making
yeah,
sense of everything is
right.
so amazing. You don't have to name names, but are people that are still affected by what happened in the family.
Mm.
I'm a big proponent of having people that watch these episodes pray for others. So, um, are there still people that could use some prayer in the family?
Of
Yeah.
course. I don't think they'll mind me giving their first names. I mean, so my little sister is Melinda. Um, my my nephew is Anthony, and my niece is Courtney. Um, they're they're adoptive parents who, brother who lost his brother.
Yeah.
Um, his name is Craig, and his wife is Jennifer,
Okay.
and their two kids, Ashley and Danielle.
Okay.
Uh, Myself, my mom was one of seven daughters, um, and so she's only the second one that's passed. So those my five aunts, are I know that they miss their sister too.
Yeah.
But just praying, if they just think about it, just think about praying for the family, that would be fine. I would ask special prayers for my nephew's wife, Kaylee, and the baby, because she's also a diabetic, so it's gonna be a a tough pregnancy for her. But so far, everything has been great. So to keep those two in special prayers is would be awesome.
I
So
appreciate you sharing that. I really,
yeah.
really appreciate that. And everyone, as I ask, yeah, please pray for this family. And um, Deacon Mark, how almost speechless about this. It's got to be incredibly emotional. I don't know if you ever go there. So you're in prayer.
Hmm.
I'm gonna start crying.
Okay.
You're in prayer and you can reminisce about all these very difficult things that happen. Do emotions flood out when you're thinking about how grateful you are,
Hmm.
not for those moments, but for what God has done despite all of that?
Yeah, yeah, like emotion wise, yeah, you know, in the beginning, I can remember I can remember waking up crying, right? After, like, I don't remember dreaming anything, but I can remember waking up crying about, and so something was happening.
Yeah,
Like there was a even at sleeping, there was a healing going on. But to talk about it, I didn't realize being able to talk about it. So through our parish, we have what it's now called Welcome, but it was Christ Renew's parish. You know, so I was part of several teams where I shared my witness. You know, very similar to tonight, in a lot of ways. But to just talk about what happened in the situation was so healing and emotional, in ways I hadn't expected. The way it affects me now is very interesting. That I almost always seem to be deacons are almost always preaching on the weekend of my sister's birthday in August. The last 3 years, I've had to preach right around that date, and so it becomes a struggle for me because I'm for some reason I'm thinking about her.
sure.
So there's a big struggle in there, and but until I recognize it, you know, either I'd say it out loud to my wife, or I just internally recognize, okay, I know what this struggle is. I know why I'm blocked. I can't come up with what to say because I'm just too emotional about it, um, internally. Once I let that go, then I can share about it. I've even talked about it. Like one day it was her birthday, you know, and I shared, you know, I shared a little bit of the story in my homily. And sure enough, two people come up to me after mass and say, "Today's my birthday too. I'm glad I had the same birthday as your sister." You know, it's strange things like that. So that gets me emotional to hear that kind of stuff. But it's in a lot of ways, it's a good emotional, because it's through that I've um, uh, not just myself, anybody that's gone through these things and has been able to come out the other side. This is not about, we are signs of hope to those that are on the other side. So like your show is showing, can, you know, it shows that sign of hope that you can come through whatever you're dealing with and get to the other side. Doesn't mean your struggles are gone, but there's joy that comes through some of this, and there you can smile and have happiness in your life that maybe you didn't have before. And you know, people tell me when I share the story that we like, if you didn't share that story with me, I would never guess that you went through that. Um, and that's that hope. And I didn't go through it the worst. My mom went through it way more than I did. My niece and nephew, they didn't just lose one parent, they lost both. Um, for them to be where they are at this point, that's all
Amazing.
by the grace of God,
Yeah.
by who was put in their lives, by the therapists, um, their uncle and aunt who, I don't even I can't even imagine everything they went through. And I know they shielded us from some of it. I know they did what they had to struggle with them and what they were going through themselves. And you know, and their uncle had lost his brother. So there was a lot. But for where these, if you're looking at like a drone size footage of all this going on, you're like, who could predict that?
Yeah.
There's only one guy that could have predicted that. And you know, so where this is at now, um, where it goes from here, I'm excited to see and be a part of.
I was going to say, you're in the
Yeah,
middle of this
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And
Whoa.
I haven't told any of my family that I was doing this today. So I actually didn't tell. And I guess the only person that really knows is Gloria because she's the one. So
Yeah, she
it
would
just
know. She would know.
yeah,
She's so sweet in her email.
yeah.
One other thing that's so odd, anyone that's gone through the people, I can think of a handful of people that have gone through really, really very tragic situations, and when they get emotional, they're expressing such a deep love that you would not know otherwise. I don't know how else to
Mm,
articulate that. There is such a love that comes through even when you're very emotional and tears are
mhm.
flowing and there's still sadness or there's still healing that needs to happen. But the gravity of the love that's being shown when you lose someone and you have those feelings, I
Mhm.
don't know. Even in the absence, there's something very powerful that God does through our emotions
Yeah,
when we are willing to to, to let these things be with us and not run from them, to
right.
embrace them in a healthy way. It's tremendous. I just saw it in you, and I've seen it in a number of other people, this love that they have for whoever was lost, like your mom, your
Yeah,
dad, I mean your
yeah.
sister. Lots of prayers will be coming. I will end with this.
Okay.
What is your, I guess, parting message for the audience?
Oh wow. It's, gosh, almost what I said there. Here, there, there is hope. There is there is hope no matter what your situation is. There is hope, and there is somebody who understands out there. There's someone out there who can help you. Um, but you have to voice it. You have to be willing to voice it, and you have to be willing to allow yourself to be open enough to have to let others in. Let them in. Um, Somebody out there knows. Somebody out there kind of knows what you went through. I have my personal experience with my family to the point where um, if I hear a mother's cry in a certain way, I've heard that cry before, and I've identified very quickly why that mother is crying the way she is because she's lost somebody, and it's you can hear it and you can feel it. The Lord has given us great gifts like that. I think through these traumas, we receive other gifts to walk with others in that sense. So the message is that there's hope, and the message is to those that have made it through the other side. Part of our call is to help others to get there as well. That's where that hope links to the love of the cross, and we all get better there.
Love it. Deacon Mark, what a privilege this has been this past hour. I appreciate every last thing you shared, and I wish you all the best in all that you're doing for the church. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I wish you all the best. I enjoy your show. I'm so happy that my wife just randomly came upon it, but we know it's not random. But the fact that she's like she's listened to them all, and she tells me which ones to listen to next, and now I'm getting them on when they come out. So keep up the great work yourself, Eddie. I think
I
it's
appreciate it.
greatly needed.
I appreciate it so much. Everyone, please share this. Please like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, take care and God bless you all. Bye.
God bless you.